You clicked on this video expecting me to go over 3 problems of why your mental health is bad and how to fix it, right? Or something like that, where I go through a list, explain the details, and you sit there and listen. However, I'm going to try to give you a different perspective on mental health, because mental health is developed through you and not anyone else. So you, the individual, have your own unique individual problems that I cannot solve by myself. Meaning, you have to put in some effort in some way, shape, or form to solve that problem to make you a better person. Now, to start off with, if you clicked on this video and you're genuinely going to watch it, that probably means that your mental health is not great or not desirable. And it also means that you have a sort of calling or guidance to pay attention to your mental health. Now, to elaborate, the mental health that you are experiencing in this present moment is because of your actions or your environment or both. And 9 out of 9 times it is both. You will not experience someone whose mental health is completely deteriorated solely because of their environment, right? Whether they consciously know or not know that their consciousness and their conscious actions are actually damaging their mental health, that's a different story. So, to start off with, you are the person that needs the fixing. Now, how do you get this fixing? Good question. For starters, I would say you should try to figure out what the problem is on your own. Writing it down, doing introspective work. Now, if you are someone who knows their problem, which most people probably do, they know what their problem is, I want you to take that problem and try to figure out a solution that you could implement as a daily habit. Now, it's kind of difficult because that usually generalizes into meditation, which would probably work for you. It worked for me. So I recommend you going into that and trying that one out as a first protocol, right? If you want a actionable step for today's video. Now, if you're someone who takes the effort to discover their problem, finds their specific problem, and they know what they need to do to solve it, maybe it's something broader or more specific beyond meditation, I want you to take that and apply that skill into your life. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a phobia of doctors. I hate doctors, okay? And every time I go into the doctor's office, I get this feeling of anger and fear of what they're going to do to me, okay? So how do I overcome this problem? For starters, we must begin with recognizing the fear and the anger. Don't run away from that feeling, right? Because that feeling is what brings you into your homeostasis or your normality, which is you currently. So you cannot ignore that, because otherwise you're ignoring the normal self and you have no point A to start from. Do you understand? Because homeostasis is the normal, natural state of you as you exist. So if you were to take that and change it to something else before getting to point B or the destination, then you're going to be very misled and more confused about your identity as an individual being. To take that then and apply that knowledge here, we can begin to understand that people need time to change. Simple. So this person is afraid of doctors, and now that we've given him the opportunity, or her the opportunity, to understand their emotion, we can now change it. So the first step in order to change their emotion or their perspective is to first change their thoughts. Manually input a positive thought about a doctor. Why I'm saying this is because I bet you that you've never put a positive thought pattern in your head about a doctor. Because when you were probably a kid, you probably had to do something semi-traumatic in a doctor's office, and you hated it ever since. And it hurt, and it was really painful. You cried about it, probably. Something like that. So if you do know that exact example for you, I'd recommend to visit that memory and describe it in great detail, so that way you understand as the individual who is conscious now that, oh, that really wasn't that bad. Or maybe it was that bad and it should be taken that seriously. Maybe your fear and anger of doctors is necessary. There is that route, you know. And it's important to understand the difference between the two routes, so that way you know that if your fear and anger at the doctor's office are something serious and something that needs to be countermeasured, or if it's something serious that needs to be continued because your doctor is not a good person. It's a very tough line to actually get between those two, because that often relies upon the fact if you're agreeable or disagreeable, which it shouldn't. Because if it relies on your agreeableness as a person, that means your control of your situations is solely dependent on something that you were genetically predisposed to, making you a weaker person overall. So that's why you have to actually dive into the details of your mental health, okay? You cannot sit there and watch another video that says, oh, here's the 3 reasons why your mental health is bad, blah, blah, blah. You've heard the same thing. You've got to actually understand what is going on within your mind that makes you, first of all, have the feeling that something needs to be solved. And number 2, understanding to use that, place it somewhere else, and then solve it, right? What do I mean by place it somewhere else and solve it? Well, let's say you want to become a musician, and let's say that maybe you aren't exactly driven to be a musician, per se, or maybe you're not motivated every single day, right? Well, if I put a gun to your head and I told you to become a fucking musician, what would happen? You'd become a musician. Now, why is that? Well, minus the fact that you're obviously having a gun pointed to your head, it's the fear. Not misplacing, but directing the fear towards the fear of being a bad musician. You can then get up and do that thing constantly. I like this thing from Alex Hormozi. He mentioned that we are rats as human people. This is all paraphrased, by the way. And the rat can have the cheese or the cat. The cheese being the reward and the cat being the fear. If you were to run away from nothing and just eat cheese all day, you'd eventually become fat, immobile, lazy, and unworkable with. But if you understand there's a cat behind you, you can run. You can put in character. You can put in challenge. That is the thing that makes people grow. It is not the reward from the actions being done. And it is not the reward of doing 50 push-ups that makes people do 50 push-ups. It's the fear that they will become lazy, lethargic, fat, and unable to move later on in life that makes people exercise. So you have to really fine-tune the understanding of objective reward and subjective fear. when you can take those two, or maybe it's an objective fear, by the way, but if you take those two and you bring them and you collaborate them into you, the individual, you can really get a head start on solving your mental health. Because you know exactly what your problem is, you know exactly what you need to be fearful of, you know exactly what the reward will be for you, the individual. Let's say if you work 10 minutes tonight or this morning writing something about meditation or writing something about your problems, maybe your reward is a cup of coffee. Boom. Now you've got a reward attached to the thing with a fear behind you. That's a recipe for a masterpiece. So, next time you're here, I want you to experience those results. And as always, we're here to help you help them.